Alright, here we are on the 1864 turn. For those of you that have tuned into the last couple episodes, you'll remember in 1862 that I somehow managed to play an extra summer turn. 1863 I had already filmed before I realized this, so I left it the same. But now I'm having to reconcile that in 1864. So what I've decided to do is just skip ahead a turn. So basically everything has been just a turn ahead. So while the last time I was here I was saying it was the fall of 1863, it was actually the spring of 1864. So we're picking up now in the summer of 1864. It's not a perfect fix, but I don't really think it's fair to play a whole extra turn because that benefits the Union unfairly to give them an extra turn. And they could really use it. We got to combine all of those really good generals that come in the spring of 1864, which of course is one of the disadvantages of skipping ahead, is they don't get another turn having already been on the board. So that's unfortunate, but we're going to see if they can get it done in 3 turns. So they got Sherman, they're going to put him in the Army of the Potomac, rather than moving Grant over as happened historically. There's still a lot to do in the West, so Grant's going to stay out there and see it through himself, while Sherman's going to take over from McClellan, who has done nothing, has literally done nothing, and did some other shuffling around, got Sheridan in with the Army of the Cumberland, so everybody's pretty juiced up and ready to go. So let's get you the hands. We'll start off with the Union. So they got Overseas Agents, which isn't, just a 3-point card. Minor Campaign, that's nice. An Elite Units card, they already have 1 in play. Gettysburg Address, it's a 3 Strategic Will point card. It's probably not going to be used for that. Missouri guerrilla raids. Confederate torpedoes can't be used. Another Elite Units card, which of course they already have 1 Elite Unit in play, so they can't have more than 2. So decent. Minor Campaign, 2-3 cards. It's not great, but especially now that we have Grant and we'll soon have Sherman in command, it won't be detrimental. For the Union, or for the Confederates, they have a 3 Minor Campaign, the Orphan Brigade, Mexican Supply Pipeline, which cannot be used now. They're running desperately low on SPs. Before, we had them piled up all around the coast, just sitting everywhere. Guarding the ports made it really difficult. Well, now they're just not getting as many as they need. They have 3 armies in the field that were battered last turn, so they just need to have more SPs than they got. So they had to pull them from the coast, which next turn you're going to see a continued depletion, and the Union's going to be able just to walk in, basically. So this would have been nice. Another Minor Campaign, Wilson's Creek. Strategy board, which they can't use. And food shortage. So this would have been a much better hand for the Union to have 2 Minor Campaigns, 2 otherwise usable 3 cards. This would have been what they wanted, but the one they have isn't terrible, especially with that Minor Campaign, because you could really see it being used for a dual action attack on Memphis. Not that it probably really matters if they were to do that. They could probably have better used taking Arkansas and Memphis in the same swipe, but either way, there is potential, but they only have 3 turns to do it. The 1864 election should not be a problem. The strategic will the difference is pretty stark. If the Union, I don't know how this has happened, but they've managed to get the strategic will down pretty low. Despite the fact that they haven't really conquered anything. They've gotten 1 state and, haven't really made any progress. But otherwise, they have the strategic will down pretty low. So if Tennessee goes, maybe Louisiana, Mississippi, it's going to be, they're going to be pretty desperate for SPs towards the end, but they might just be able to hold out. So we won't have to worry about that fall deadline. But there's only 3 turns left to get this done, and it just doesn't look like it's going to be easy. But with the strength and the cards coming out right, they might just be able to do it. So let's jump in. So it'll be a minor campaign to open up for the Union, and they're going to go straight in for the big 2 attacks in Tennessee. Not going to waste any time with any other of the preparatory actions that they had planned out. They're just going to go right in for the jugular in Tennessee and try and break this Confederate resistance, because while it may look like a tough nut to crack from the way it is now, 3 armies in the field, some of them well positioned within forts or otherwise, but really once this line of defense goes in Memphis and Tuoloma, especially if they're pretty resoundingly defeated, it could all just open like the floodgates, especially if they lose with high casualties. The Union can recover from that fairly easily, but the Confederates will have a much harder time. So if things go poorly here for the Confederates, it won't just be a matter of losing Tennessee, but it could quickly snowball into Georgia, Mississippi, and otherwise, because they're teetering on a complete disaster if these attacks go as the Union want them to. So let's do Memphis first, because it's pretty straightforward. So we have the Army of the Cumberland, led by Ambrose Burnside. He just was reinforced by Sheridan and McPherson, which give him some pretty hefty combat modifiers. That'll put him up to a +5, and he's at 12 strength points. The defenders are the Army of the Mississippi, led by Stonewall Jackson, with 10 strength points, so this will be a large battle. He's going to have a modifier of 5+ as well, plus the 2 for the fort, so actually +7. Now he can use up to 2 subordinates, and the worry is that if you use the subordinates, that they could be killed in battle, because this will be eligible for that. So they could just rely off of the strength of Jackson and the fort, which would give them 5, or they could go all in on 7. They don't really want to lose generals, because that's going to put Wheeler at risk, and they do not want to lose a cavalry general. Now I believe he can be replaced. He just won't be as good, but Wheeler's not great anyways. They obviously don't want to lose this. But the higher those modifiers go, doesn't really matter. I mean, you're going to have 5. So I think they're going to just use Jackson's modifier. They're not going to include Wheeler or Pope, just in case, because they can probably sneak by with roll of 4, even though they'll probably end up there anyways. So anyways, let's get a roll on here. Yep, so high for both sides, 5 and a 4. So that 5 is going to be modified to a 10, and that 4 is going to be modified to a 9. So actually they missed it out by 1 of being where they wanted to be and being able to hold this. So the casualties are going to be 5 aside, but the Union get the asterisk. The worry for them is that they could lose a general, and they have good generals, but they need to break through here. So worrying, but we'll see. So it's going to be 5 apiece. So the Army of the Mississippi goes down to 5 strength points. Army of the Cumberland down to 7. They will take the fort space. So losing a fort causes a strength or a strategic will loss of 1 and a +1 for the Union. Army of the Mississippi will have to retreat. They'll come down to Panola. Memphis will be destroyed. Burnsides will move in. That'll be another 5 loss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Confederates are now down to 36. And the Union gain those. It is a large battle as well. So they'll lose another 5, the Confederates. They're actually on 31. So the Union will gain 3 for winning a large battle. And trying to see if they get... Yeah, they also get the resource. So that's going to be 3 for the battle, 5 for the space, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The Union are at 94. Confederates are at 31. Those large battles aren't going to help them either. So Tennessee's eligible to fall now because they have both the resource spaces. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 8 of the 13 requisite places. Now we're going to have to roll for leader casualties. So it's a 3 or higher, or 1 to 3 for the Union and a 1 for the Confederates. Both of them roll a 5, meaning that there is no leader loss roll, which is huge for the Union. They really were worried about that. So now we're going to come over to the east, and Grant is going to march down through Nashville, 1, 2, 3, convert Murfreesboro, and then Tullahoma. Or Tullahoma, sorry. Tullahoma is a soccer player's name, so Tullahoma, Tennessee. So the Army of the Tennessee is led by Albert Sidney Johnston, who's still kicking around, 8 strength points to the Union Army of Tennessee's 14, led by Ulysses S. Grant. So it'll be another large battle. The modifiers for the Confederates are going to be 5, which of course is, they have a lot of generals though. Hopefully they don't lose somebody like Longstreet, but they do have 2 generals in there, Bragg and Polk, who are useless. Whereas the Union, they're going to have a bonus of 5 as well. And, if they lose somebody, they lose somebody. But low rolls, 1 on a 3. So this one will probably go okay for the Confederates. So 1 is going to be modified to a 6, which is a 3. And a 3 is going to be modified to an 8, which is a 4. So it'll be 3 for the Army of the Tennessee, 1, 2, 3, down to 5, and 4 for the Army of the Tennessee down to 10. So that's perfectly fine. The Union will happily take that because they can trade strength points with them and not be too worried about it. And they'll be set up for another attack where they can finish the job because they're going to be at 2 to 1 odds. Another similar result. It'll be on the medium table. Should be enough to put it over the line. Forrest will probably be pesky and jump in behind and eliminate the supply lines. But who cares? He may even jump back in with the Army of the Tennessee to provide some extra strength points. If he can even do that. I'm not sure if he can, because you might only be able to have 1 cavalry general. Anyways, all in all, this attack goes pretty well. So they're over to the Confederates now, who will have to manage with Jackson being displaced down in Mississippi and what they're going to do about that. So the Confederates retreated back into Vicksburg, as well as pulled the Army of the Tennessee back to Atlanta, basically ceding Tennessee to the Union. It's just not a fight they're willing to have. They don't really see the point in it, now. So we're going to move over to the Trans-Mississippi and have Hooker and the Army of the Missouri march down 1, 2, convert Elizabeth, and then Little Rock. So it's going to be Van Dorn with 2 strength points against Hooker with 9 strength, or 10 strength points. So it's going to be 5 to 1, which gives them a +4. Do they want to use any? They're not going to use any subordinates. So they're going to get a +4. Van Dorn's going to get a nothing, and they're going to be in a medium battle. Or you know what? They'll go ahead and use them because the force modifier means that they can't get a loss. So they'll go all in and get a +6. So it's a 5, 4. On a medium battle, that means the Union will have theirs modified to a 3. Confederates will have theirs on a 4, which is only a 1 strength point loss. So the Union goes from 10 to 9. Van Dorn's forces are destroyed. He'll go on the turn marker for next turn. And Little Rock will fall. And since they were more than double the size, they can continue their movement. So that was 1, 2. This is 3, 4 to take the space. Strategic will adjustments. 1, 2, 3 to go from plus to minus. We'll drop a marker down in there. They need 6 of the 9 spaces here to take it, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll come down and fight Pemberton. So Pemberton has 3 with a +1 modifier. They are at 9 with a +6. Oh no, because the modifier will change because of the force. So now they're at 3 to 1, I believe, because it's 3 to 9. Yeah. So they're going to get a +2, +4 total. +4 and a +1. 4 to 1's the die roll. So that 4 is modified by another 4 to an 8. And that 1 is modified to a 2. So an 8 in the medium is a 2, and the 2 is a 1. So down to 8 strength points. And these guys are hit by 2, down to a single strength point. They'll have to retreat to Camden because there's nowhere else to go to. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They can continue to carry on because they are still more than double the size, and they'll just convert that space. So half of Arkansas has been taken. They don't need to get rid of Pemberton and Washington. They can just basically leave him be, maybe leave some troops behind, or have Rosecrans come up and handle him. But they'll just need to grab 3 more spaces there to convert that, which may not get done this turn. It's just 5 strategic will points, so it's not great. But obviously, at the end of the game, if we haven't reduced the Confederates down to 0 strategic will, it comes down to the number of border states and states. I think the number is like 9. So we would need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's something like that. Anyways, so they're always looking for that, which is why even a state like Arkansas can help. So back over to the, that wasn't even in focus, by the way, for any of that. I'm sorry. All of it happened down here. Sorry you missed it. But now over to the Confederates. Alright, so I just finished up the summer 1864 turn. No other battles happened, but there was some clever maneuvering in order to get these political control markers on the board. Forrest had come around to Corinth and eliminated a control marker in Lexington. Looked like he could go and run around in West Tennessee, kind of screwing with the Union because the Union had blocked off East Tennessee. So the Army of the Cumberland marched out and forced them to retreat until eventually they, because they didn't want to get in a fight, obviously, until they were hemmed in here between Steve and Chattanooga, forced them up into Rogersville, where Grant eventually came down. So some clever maneuvering, but regardless, they will have enough to convert the state. So we're going to place PC markers wherever there are currently forces that are in supply. He's in supply because of the river. We're going to get one in Knoxville. And one in Missionary Ridge. And that'll give them enough to convert the state of Tennessee, which will be a 10-point strategic will loss, down to 20 for the Confederates now, and 82 for the Union. So where are those markers? Here we go. Tennessee falls like a year or two late, but nonetheless. So we'll go on to the fall 1864 turn. The election won't be a problem. The Confederates are guaranteed to lose 5 strategic will, which will bring them down to 15. If they lose Arkansas, That'll take them down to 10, which means they only need to lose 10 other strength points between those that last turn, basically, as well as any other actions. So Richmond would do it. Mississippi would do it. Alabama would do it. Basically, any other state, even Louisiana would come close, but not quite. So the opportunities is there. It's just a matter of where it's going to come at and the difficulty of actually executing it, because the Confederates are going to be holding on by tooth and nail at this point because their backs are against the wall. But I do think it can be done. It's just a matter of how difficult it'll be to get there. As well, one thing I didn't mention is in the east, Sherman took over and repositioned some forces there, so he'll be up and running next turn as well, which will, of course, not be great for the Confederates. But if they can use one turn to wear down the Army of Northern Virginia, they might be able to, in 1865, march into Richmond. They don't need, if they take the state, that's great, but they would have to take Richmond in order to do that. So just taking Richmond would be enough to end the game. Which would be, pretty spectacular to think about, that they would win the game off of only taking Tennessee, Arkansas, and Texas. When in reality, you're saying it was, Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Georgia, basically, South Carolina, basically, North Carolina, basically, Virginia. The more convincing victory, but we're not here to be convincing, we're just here to win. So that'll do it for this turn, and we'll see you next time for fall 1865. And that's the one thing I'm going to mention is, I meant to say 1864, by the way, but we're going to combine these three all into one episode. So normally I do them by years, but I'm going to go ahead and just do these three all together. So we'll have 1864, so that's 1865 in this video. Fall 1864, getting down to crunch time. Let's go first with the Union hand. Richmond bread riots, 2 strategic will points. It's honestly probably not worth more than the actual 2 activation points. Cabinet intrigue, 3-pointer. Big Bethel. Tennessee Confederate, it's Isham Harris. George Rains, another 2. Gorgas, which is another 3. Clara Barton, probably not going to get used, but we'll see. And that's it. It's not a bad hand. There's a couple of big 3s in there just in case. Once again, we have a lot of low activation generals now, so it may be better to use this for the strength points, especially if we get in a big battle and lose, 4 or 5 strength points. It may be good to drop that in there and help, resupply some areas, and then some other 2s. So not overall well-balanced hand, but I think it's going to be good for what they need. For the Union, for the Confederates, they have a minor campaign. Empty haversacks. Kentucky Anarchy. Union's arm production's delayed, which, they don't have a lot to do, so sometimes these events that remove strength points are good. Strategic will, that's really useless. Grierson's raid, can't use it, and the 90-day enlistments expire. Which, once again, between these 2 cards, they could get rid of 5 strength points. So maybe it's to stall up the Union advance, but they've got quite a few objectives here. Atlanta, built a fort in Atlanta during the last term, so that'll be a little bit tougher to crack, but they should be able to get in there and handle that. So the Union's going to take the first whack at it, and 20 strength points, 20 strategic will points is what they need to get rid of over the next 2 turns. Here we go. Alright, the opening move by the Union is to eliminate the Confederate forces in Arkansas and therefore the Trans-Mississippi. It's going to be 6 of Hooker's Army of the Missouri and Pemberton with just a single strength point. 2 4s is the roll. So on the medium battle table, a 4 is modified by 2 to a 6. It's modified by 1 to a 5. So a 6 will get them 2, and a 5 gets the attackers 1. So that will eliminate Pemberton. He'll go on the turn track, and the Army of Missouri will go down to 5 strength points. So that's going to be 1, 2 to convert. They were more than double the size, so they can continue their movement. So that's 2. Let me zoom out so you can actually see the things that happen this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They take Fayetteville. Or you know what's probably better. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They'll leave a strength point here in Clarksville. And then they'll probably come down here and meet up with Rosecrans and then head east. But that'll get them pretty much Arkansas wrapped up in another 5 strategic will points in the bag. So the Union, with another attempt to crack New Orleans, they're going to be going with Thomas and 2 strength points. He's got some pretty good numbers. They're going to have +2 for the fort, +1 for Ewell, 3 strength points, and +2 for the Arkansas. So it's going to be a total of 5, whereas Thomas is going to have 2 and 4 for a total of +6. We're going to be in the small battles side. And the rolls do not go well. 6 and 2. That 6 is modified past a 10, and the 2 is modified up to an 8. So an 8 will get them 1, and the 10 will get them 2. So actually it would have been fine if they would have just gotten a 9, but the 2 will eliminate Thomas, unfortunately, and the strength points. They will lose 1 and go down to 2. This is just a difficult one to keep fighting because, you know, we really need to be doing things in other places. There's just not quite enough action cards to be going after this, but you know, that's if they can just get in there, you know, Louisiana will go, and that's another 7 strength of strategic will. So they might keep pressing there. They might decide that it's just not worth it, but we'll see. So the Union are going with a similar strategy, but a different target. They're going to be activating Pope to go in at Fort Morgan, take out Mobile, Alabama. It's the attempt here. He's going to have a +1 plus the +4 for the amphibious assault modifiers, a +5. And Hardy has 1. 2 is an easier target. Opens up a land route to New Orleans, which will eliminate some of the modifiers. And also opens up the possibility of just going in to Alabama. So they could do either one, because Alabama's very lightly defended and could be enough to end the war. So it'll be Pope with a +5, and 3 Hardy with +1. So a 4 and a 5. That 4 is modified to a 5. That 5 is modified to a 10. So on the 1 table, or small table, 10 is 1. A 5 is also 1, but the asterisk gives Pope the victory. So that'll flip over. Hardy will have to choose which way he wants to retreat, and I think it's more of a threat if Alabama falls. He's going to retreat northeast. That'll cause him to go down to 2, but he takes the port and now has possibly an inroad that he can go either way. He could do a pincer move in Alabama and have an army come to the north and the south, because I don't believe they need to take Vicksburg in order to convert the space. Maybe you have to take all blockade ports, or blockade running ports, all resource bases, but I don't know if you have to take forts, which would make sense if you did, but I'm not sure. So they could do a pincer move. They could fight Hardy here. Could even possibly, there's options. Could go around to New Orleans, which was the original stated goal. But this opens up another front. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to have time to capitalize on it, because very quickly these cards are running out. So the Union have switched theaters over to the east, where we have not seen a lot of action recently. Going to activate Sherman, the Army of the Potomac. This actually should have been captured from last turn. And they're going to march towards Richmond. 1, 2. Then head this way. It'll be Army of the Potomac, the Army of Northern Virginia. And it will be a large battle. The only worry about these is if you lose them, you give the opponents a strategic will boost. Which is, worrisome. But they need to be able to get some sort of result. Drive them back into Richmond, perhaps. So it's going to be 14 strength points against 11 strength points. The bonuses is going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 to 3, 4, 5, 6. Everyone's going to go all in. 6 each. Which, if it comes down to the large battle, it's pretty likely this is going to be both modified over a 10. Which is so tough, because that 3 strategic will bonus for winning, I'd hate for it to come down to that. Which makes me not want to do this, but I feel like if we can wear them down, we could hit them again. And then in the end, you could push the army back and then take Richmond, which would more than outweigh the cost. So I don't know, it's tempting. That's why I've been worried to fight over here, because getting in these large battles with huge modifiers, usually you're going to lose as the Union, but it's okay because, you're wearing off troops. But when you're giving up those strategic will points as well, that's tough. They're going to go through with it. Wow, the perfect roll they could have asked for. A 6 and a 1. That's amazing. So the 6 is going to be modified to a 10. That 1's going to be modified to a 7. So a 7 on the table is a 4. A 6 on the table is, or a 10 on the table is 5. So they're going to take 5. They're going to take 4. The Union will win. So it's going to go from 14 strength points for the Army of the Potomac, led by Sherman, down to 10, and 5 strength points for the Army of Northern Virginia to go from 11 to 6. They will fall back into Richmond, which there are 2 strength points currently. And those 2 strength points will push them back up to 8. So 8, they have a fort. And Sherman sitting with 10. So it would be a medium battle. By the way, they're going to lose more strategic will because they lost a large battle. So they're going to lose 5 more. They're down to 15. The Union is going to gain 3, which puts them up to 92. So now Richmond would end it. Because they're going to lose 15 strategic will for losing their capital, 12 strategic will for losing Richmond, which, that's enough to end the game. So they could keep pressing with another action next turn. That may be the way we wrap this up. It's just by taking Richmond, which will knock them out. So we'll let the Confederates go and then see. So the Union's going to go for it. They're going to go for Richmond. And the thinking here is that they're probably not going to win. But it's a medium battle. By the way, I did the leader loss roll, and there was nothing. But it's a medium battle. 9 and 10 strength points. So they don't have to worry about losing and giving the opponent strategic will. That's not a problem. And because the Confederates are going to have +8 now. which means the only way that they don't get maxed is if they roll 1, which they're not going to do twice in a row. So as long as the Confederates the Union max it out, they lose 5 strength points. They could even attack another time. So piling them up like this, there's just not going to be enough strength points to make up for it on the next turn. All the 7 strength points the Confederates get are going to go to Richmond, I promise, if they don't take it this turn. Which can then again be ground down. I'm almost positive of it. But regardless, that's going to take strength points away from other places. So this is the point to strike at. This is the place to go. Draw all their attention here because they have to defend Richmond. There's no other chance, and nowhere else they can run to. So force the issue here. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be a +6 modifier for the Army of the Potomac, and a +8 for the Confederates. They're going all in. So a 3 and a 2. 3 is modified by 8 to an 11, so they're going to max it out at 10. And the 2 will be modified by 6 to an 8. So they're actually not going to get the full number that they want. Okay, they're on medium, excuse me. So the Union is going to do 3, Confederates are going to do 2. So from 11 down to 7, and from 10 down to 7. So some parity there. So they have one more action card, the Union does. And at this point, they may do the same thing once the Confederates take their turn and just launch in again. Try and knock that number down a little bit more, because 7 strength points sitting on 14 does make that a pretty hard nut to crack. So it's just nice to be able to have one swoop that can end it, but I also don't want to spend all of next turn just literally slugging away at Richmond, especially if you're going to have to lose a few battles. Give them some strategic will. So I think they're going to go at this one more time, and then they're probably going to have to give it up for next turn, because I don't think it's going to quite be sustainable next time. But still, it still achieves the goal that we're looking for. So on they go again. +8, +6. I did the leader rolls again, only for the Confederates. They did not have to do one. So, interestingly enough, it's a 4 and a 1, which could be very bad. So the 1 is going to be modified to a 9, and the 4 is going to be modified to a 10, which means that the Union is going to win this battle. So they're both going to lose 3. But because the Union rolled in the maximum, that means that they are going to take the space. 3. They win the battle. So the fort will go away. The fort is a strength point loss, down to 14. Then they're going to move the capital marker. The capital marker alone, which let's just say we place it in Charleston, that's another 15 there, which at 14 strength points, that will end the game. That doesn't even count the 12 that would have been lost by taking the space of Richmond. So that'll do it. Not great rolls. Twice. The battle in Hanover and then the second battle in Richmond. Both times the Confederates roll a 1. And they have, the modifiers are incredible. They have an 8 modifier and a 6 modifier in those two battles. Not quite respectively, but those two battles, they have huge modifiers. And they roll 2 1s, which allow them, first of all, to lose and move into Richmond in the first place. And the other one to lose the city. If they would have been able to hold on, it would have been, hair-pullingly difficult for the Union to get it done next turn, because they would have had to take at least another state, and they ignored everything else making progress in all the other theaters. But that well puts them beyond winning, because Arkansas would have fallen at the end of the turn. That's 5 strategic will. They would have had the war guilt, which is an additional 5 strategic will. So they're negative, like 20-something strategic will at this point. The Union are sitting up at 92. So in the end, fairly convincing. It's probably one of the strangest games, because most of the time the Confederates win, because as the Union, I'm terrible at attacking. I'm a very defensive player. So I find much easier to play defensive sides, covering up areas and managing. Also, it's a lot easier when you're playing unopposed, when you're playing against someone who isn't very good at attacking. So playing opposed with someone who's good at that would make it a lot more difficult. But typically, the Confederates have a pretty easy time of it. Kind of similar to what we saw this time, where it didn't really get ramped up until 1863. And by that time, you think it's probably too late just to be taking Tennessee. But for some reason, a lot of those strategic will points were getting lost somewhere, and I have no idea where they were going. Because we have Tennessee, Texas, and then the 3 border states, because Arkansas hasn't been taken yet. We only took 2 states, the combined 17 plus 1 of Marshall, 5 of Nashville, 5 of Memphis. So that's 20 total in Tennessee, 8 total in Texas. You know, who knows, but they managed to wear them down. I guess getting the proclamation off early gave them some extra strategic wills, but I really did not think that it was going to be that close. I started looking and noticing that the strategic will was low, and lower than it really normally would have been. So, anyways, the war ends a season early in the fall of 1864 rather than the spring of 1865, and the Confederates aren't as resoundingly defeated as they were in reality. Obviously in game terms, the game is over, but you'd have to imagine the situation if the government had capitulated. You're saying Lee's still running around, Vicksburg is still around, so the heart of the South is still very much untouched by the war. So, just thinking about historically, there would have been much more to deal with after this, but in game terms, we managed to do it. This is a great game. Overall, great action cards, great system. Of course, it's a system now that, seems almost old. It's like it's the original, the card-driven. You see other mechanisms coming up now that almost seem innovative compared to this, but really, there's really, you can't go wrong with card-driven games. This is a great one. This is a great one about the Civil War. I love the strategic will track. I love the politics and the forming of the armies, the political values of the generals. I think it models the conflict really well. And it's a very good representation of the Civil War. Like I said, the U.S. Civil War is really good too. And I like it just because it's a larger, more expanded version where you have more options because it's hex movement, not point to point. So, some different tactical maneuvers seem more in that game because it's larger, it's in more detail. So I'm kind of torn. I like the systems of this one better, but I like the fact that the other one is just larger and bigger as far as the map and maneuverability goes. So all in all, love this game. One of my favorites. And Mark Herman, knocks it out of the park with just about every game he does. So that wraps up this series. I didn't really plan on saying anything about it, but I think it's kind of necessary where we're at. Obviously, I don't think you can play this game without mentioning everything that's going on from North Carolina. And we have our own legacy, of course, but Bragg. We have Fort Fayetteville, named after him, and with all the discussions of statues and the legacy that we live, and obviously this is not a legacy that we should be honoring. The Confederacy And a lot of the times we as board gamers focus so much on the wars and the tactics and the generals that we often forget why the heck we're fighting these things in the first place. I think that's a disservice to the people who served in these wars, because while many of the people may have just been fighting to fight, they wouldn't have been there if there wasn't the causes and reasons for it. So I encourage everyone who plays war games not just to read the general's report, but also look into the history of why we were even in this in the first place. Because it was a difficult time in American history where we literally were killing one another over, in the end, the defense of an institution that is horrific and not well enough portrayed in our society. Something that we like to repress, and it's just unique in the world. You don't see the sort of idolization that we give to the South that you would see in other countries, and it's frankly ridiculous. Coming from someone who very much grew up in the South and around these monuments and battlefields and was interested in the history, and that's something that I came to a realization myself, was that I was going about it all the wrong way, just being interested in war, because it was a hell of a lot more to what was going on in war, and a lot more suffering than that was going on in the battlefield. So I don't feel like I can talk about this game without talking about slavery, or without talking about the legacy that we have. So I didn't do enough to speak about it. But having been racking my brain, the words aren't coming to me. But I hope you all will understand, and we'll give it some thought as well, because we have a hobby that we enjoy and it's fun, but we also, I think, have a duty to learn to better understand what it is we're doing, playing. Because a lot of the times it's easy to extrapolate these people when they're just counters and they're just numbers. But these people were people. They did both good and bad things, depending on which general you're looking at. So definitely do more, dig more, and learn more. Don't just read the rule book. So with all that said, thank you for watching this episode. Thinking about doing Imperial Struggle next. Got my copy of it, and that's what's going to be on the table next. So look out for that series coming up. Thanks for watching.